Trig, we are going to cover lesson 106, which is an easy section. It's all graphing, and it's just in addition to what we already know about these three conics. So 106.A covers the translations of conic sections, and that just means the center is no longer at 0, 0, and it's at h, k. So I'm going to go over the three standard forms of an equation for a circle, ellipse, and a hyperbola. So a circle should look like this: x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals our radius squared. So this one is very different than the other two in the fact that there's no denominator. And if there was a denominator, they'd be identical numbers. And this side does not equal 1. An ellipse is x minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. Now the big difference here is this: an ellipse, the middle symbol is an addition, and that is the big difference between an ellipse and a hyperbola. So notice a hyperbola is very similar: x minus h squared over a squared, but the difference is the subtraction sign. And then y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. All right, so let's jump into graphing these. So section 106.B, we are going to focus on the equations of ellipses. So I have the equation up above. We're going to jump right in. All right, so it'll say something like this: describe the ellipse 3x squared plus 2y squared minus 6x plus 8y plus 5 equals 0, and write in standard form, and then graph. So these problems are going to contain a lot of work because we're going to go over a lot of different stuff. So first let's cover that this right here is general form. And in order to get it in standard form, I have to complete the square and all of that. So that's the first thing we're going to do, is I'm going to organize my terms. So 3x squared minus 6x plus 2y squared plus 8y. And I'm going to subtract the 5 because the 5 doesn't necessarily belong to anybody at this point. Now I'm going to factor out our a term. So that would leave me with 3x squared minus 2x, leave a space because we are going to be completing the square, plus 2y squared plus 4y, leave a space, equals negative 5. Okay, now I'm going to complete this square. So I have negative 2 divided by 1 squared. So that would leave me with negative 1. Squared is 1. So I'm going to add 1 here, but 3 times 1 means I'm going to add the value of 3 over here. Because remember, I factored out a 3. So I have to make sure this equal sign is true. So this is technically 3 times 1, so I'm adding 3 here. For the next one, we're completing the square. 4 divided by, this is divided by 2. 4 divided by 2 squared, which is 4, right? 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. I'm going to add 4 here, but 2 times 4 means I'm going to add 8 here. So now I'm going to write this because I'm going to factor. So I have 3x minus 1 squared plus 2y plus 2 squared equals 3 plus 8 is 11. 11 minus 5 is 6. Now, if this is an ellipse, I have to divide everything by 6. So that is, it is in standard form. So that gives me x minus 1 squared over 2 plus y plus 2 squared over 3 equals 1. All right, so now let's describe this graph. For one, because the larger number is underneath y, I know this is a vertical ellipse. Okay, that means that my major axis is y with a length of the square root of 3. Sorry, I was looking at my notes. My minor axes oh, sorry. I don't know if we need to give the length. My minor axis is x. So let's go ahead and I'm going to graph this. Also, I want to note that my center is 1, -2. So let's go ahead and graph this. Here's x, here's y. So I have 4. All right, so my center is at 1, -2. Let's go ahead and identify a. A is the square root of 3. So the square root of 3 is 1.7. B is the square root of 2. So 1.4. So this is vertical, so up 1.7, down 1.7, to the left 1.4, to the right 1.4. And so here is my ellipse. So let's talk about, I went up the square root of 3 and I went down the square root of 3. So my length of my minor axes is 2 square root of 3s. For my minor axes on x, I went to the left the square root of 2. So this was the square root of 2. This was the square root of 3. So I have 2 of them. So the length is 2 square root of 2. And so we graphed it. So this is part of the answer. This is in standard form. This describes it. And this is my graph. So that is a lot of work, but that's just how it is. So let's do one more. So we're going to repeat all of that in 9x squared plus 4y squared. Actually, sorry. I'm going to switch everything. Sorry, 4x squared plus 9y squared minus 8x plus 54y plus 49 equals 0. All right, so the first things first, let's group our terms. So 4x squared minus 8x plus 9y squared plus 54y, and we subtract the 49. That's our first step. Things are grouped, and I've moved to the constant. The second thing is to factor out a. So x squared minus 2x, leave a space, plus 9 parentheses y squared plus 6y, leave a space, equals -49. Now let's complete the square. So -2 divided by 2 squared, that equals 1. 6 divided by 2 squared equals 9. So I'm adding 1 here, I'm adding 9 here. But to the right-hand side, I'm adding 4 times 1, which is 4, and 9 times 9, which is 81. Okay, now let's factor. So I have 4 parentheses x minus 1 squared plus 9 parentheses y plus 3 squared equals 85 minus 49, which is 36. And then to make this equal 1, I'm dividing everything by 36. So final form in standard is x minus 1 squared over 9 plus y plus 3 squared over 4 equals 1. So here is my standard form. Because the larger number, the larger denominator is underneath x, this is horizontal, with a center at 1, -3. I have my major axis is x with a length of, and we'll fill that in later, and my minor axes, and that's because the longer number is across x, that's why it's major. So it's longer across x. It's shorter across y, so my minor axis is y with length of, and we'll fill that in later. So I have A is 3 and B is 2, and my center is 1, -3. So let's go ahead and graph that. So 2, 4, 6, this is x, 2, -2, -4, -2, -4, that's y. So my center is at 1, -3. A is 3, and this is horizontal, so to the left 3 and to the right 3. So I went a 3 here and a 3 here, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's a length of 6. Back to center, up 2, down 2, so that's a length of 4. Then I will draw my ellipse. Let me fix that one. And there is my answer. So moving along, that was 106.B. So we are going to move on to 106.C, which is the equations of hyperbolas. And we're going to do the same thing we did for an ellipse. The difference is we're working with hyperbolas. So remember that in a hyperbola, we're going to have to deal with our asymptotes. And it's going to be a little bit more complicated. So number 1, put the following: 9x squared minus 4y squared plus 18x minus 16y minus 43 equals 0 in standard form. Graph and find asymptotes. All right, so I have to leave room for both. So let's first list our terms in order. So 9x squared plus 18x minus 4y squared minus 16y equals 43. Now I know this is an hyperbola because there is a minus sign. So if we look at the last couple that we've done, in between x and y squared there's been a plus sign. So without them telling me, I know that if I see a plus sign, it's an ellipse, and a subtraction sign is a hyperbola. So because I have a subtraction sign, I know this is a hyperbola. All right, so now let's factor out a. So 9x squared plus 2x, negative 4y squared plus 4y equals 43. So 2 divided by 2 squared equals 1, so plus 1, but over here that would be plus 9. 4 divided by 2 squared equals 4, that's plus 4, but that is a negative 16. So let's factor this. So 9x plus 1 squared minus 4y plus 2 squared equals 43 plus 9 minus 16, which is 36. Divide everything, right, by 36. And I get x plus 1 squared over 4 minus y plus 2 squared. Whoops, I said 2, but wrote 9. Over 9 equals 1. All right. So this one, because the larger number is underneath, well, because x squared is first, this is horizontal. So it's different rules. So this is horizontal with a center at -1, -2. Okay, so A is always first, so A is 2, B is 3. So let's start the graph on this one. So I'm just going to label one box because that is kind of time consuming. Here's x, here's y. All right, so my center is at 1, -2. A is 2, so to the left 2, to the right 2. And A is underneath, so this is A squared, this is B squared. A is underneath x, that's why I went along the, like x goes left to right. Y is 3, or sorry, B is 3. And this forms my triangle. So with an ellipse, A squared is the larger number. With a hyperbola, A squared is always first. So let's draw this line here. There's one line, and there is 2. And it's going to take some work to find those asymptotes. And my graph is horizontal, so I should be taking my hyperbola and approaching it to my asymptote. So start at that dot. And your hyperbola should be as wide as your asymptotes are, and please use arrows. So let's talk about my asymptotes. My asymptotes have a slope of plus or minus, let's see here, I went up 3/2. And I have a point that they both go through, and that's my center, -1 and -2. And so we're going to have to actually calculate the lines. So y minus a -2 equals, let's start with the positive 3/2 times x minus a -1. So this is y plus 2 equals 3/2 x plus 3/2. So one of my asymptotes is y equals 3/2 x. I have to subtract 2, right? So that's 2, that's 6/2. So -3/2. So that's one asymptote. Did I do that right? Oh, whoops. This should be 4/2. The other asymptote, and I'm kind of running out of room, so I'm going to write it over here, would be y plus 2 equals -3/2 times x plus 1. Because I know these are both plus. So that gives me y equals -3/2x minus 3/2 minus 4/2. So my other asymptote would be y equals -3/2x minus 7/2. So you are going to have to use point slope form to find your intercepts. So it is a lot of work, but it's a lot of review work. We have 2 more problems, and that'll sum up our notes. So the second one, y squared minus x squared minus 8x, minus 14y plus 29 equals 0. Now I know this is a hyperbola because the sign in between y squared and x squared is a subtraction sign. Okay, so that tells me right off the bat what this is. So let's organize our terms. Y squared minus 14y minus x squared minus 8x equals negative 29. Now I don't have anything to factor out, so I can go straight to completing the square. I do have to factor out that negative, so negative x squared plus 8x, and then equals negative 29. So negative 14 over 2 squared would be 49. And 8 divided by 2 squared would be 16. So I'm adding 49 here. There's nothing out here, so I'm adding 49 here. I'm adding 16 here, but that's a negative, so I'm subtracting 16. So I have y minus 7 squared minus x plus 4 squared equals 49 minus 29 is 20. 20 minus 16 is 4. So if I divide all of this by 4, I'm left with y minus 7. There's nothing to reduce over 4. Minus x plus 4 squared over 4 equals 1. So you might be thinking, why isn't this a circle? Because they have the same denominator. This could have been radius squared. It's because of the subtraction sign. So this is still a hyperbola. Now, because y squared is first, this is vertical. Because y squared is first, with a center at 7 and negative 4. A is 2 and B is 2. Because I'm taking the square root. All right, so let's make room for my center, right? Because it's at 7, negative. Oh, I listed the y value first. X value is negative 4 and positive 7. Thankfully, I caught that. All right, so here is negative 4, positive 4, positive 8, negative 8, x, y. So my center is at negative 4, 7, and I'm going 2 in every direction. And then lines through the corners. Those are your asymptotes. And it's vertical, so I should be drawing my hyperbola in the top and bottom and making it as wide as your asymptotes. So for my asymptotes, my slope is plus or minus 2 over 2, which would be plus or minus 1. And the point they both go through is the center. So I have to use y minus 7 equals, let's start with positive 1, 1 times x minus a negative 4, which will be plus. So y equals 1x plus 4 plus 7. So y equals 1x plus 11. That's 1. The next one will be y minus 7 equals negative 1 times x plus 4. So y equals negative 1x minus 4 plus 7. So y equals a negative 1x plus 3. And those are my asymptotes. So it's a lot of work. Hopefully you at least look at my notes before asking me how to do this. Notice we didn't go over circles. Circles should be review. I'll do one problem. So number 3, a circle whose center is 3, -4, and radius is 5. Write the equation in general form. So general form is when you have no parentheses. General form is this. This is general form. Okay, so when you, sorry, my G looks like a Q. When you think of general form, think of no parentheses. Standard form has parentheses. So I have to start with standard form. So x minus 3 squared plus y plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. And to get this in general form, I would then distribute. So x squared minus 6x plus 9 plus y squared plus 8y plus 16 equals 25. And then I would list terms in order. So x squared plus y squared minus 6x plus 8y, and I'd have to subtract 25 minus 9 equals 0. And that completes this section for homework. You are going to, so homework, I will go over what to skip later. I have to edit that. Thank you, and that completes this section.